Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome, and thank you so much for joining us for Office Hours, Getting Started with Bookshare. My name is Laura Ronberg, and I am on the team that works with Bookshare, and my colleague Heather Collins is with me today, who will be helping answer some of the questions. What I'm going to do is go over a pretty brief PowerPoint presentation that will give you kind of all the main points about Bookshare. And then we'll go and I will do some demos to show you what it actually looks like when you log into an account from the teacher perspective and the student perspective. And then we will have time to answer some questions. As you have questions, please enter them into the Q&A box. We will be answering some throughout the presentation, and then after it's over, I will answer some verbally. So please ask away. We're here to help you get started with Bookshare. Okay, so to start off, what is Bookshare? Bookshare is an ebook library that makes reading easier. People with reading barriers such as dyslexia, learning, reading disabilities, visual impairments, or physical disabilities can read books in ways that work for them. All of our books can be listened to out loud. They have the follow along word highlighting and speech, text to speech. They all can be read in large type or on Braille devices. Bookshare offers over 860,000 titles. We add to that number every month. We add about 5,000 titles to our collection. And the collection is vast. It's textbooks, literature, fiction, nonfiction, periodicals, newspapers, books for upskilling, for adults who are maybe trying to get into a new profession or career. There's books on learning new skills for that. Driver's license manuals for every state in the country. It's just a very wide range of books. So chances are you'll find the book you need. Most importantly, Bookshare is free for qualified students in schools, and it's students of any age. It's students who pre-K, K-12, post-secondary, adult education, vocational rehabilitation programs, and so forth. So as long as it's a student, Bookshare is free. When someone is no longer a student, it's $50 a year for unlimited access for qualified individuals. Someone is saying that they can't see the slide. If you could just, in the chat box, tell me if you can see the slides. Okay, a couple people have said they can't see the slides. Let me see if I can, oh, and some people can see them. Oh, but they're not seeing it in advance. Okay, I'm going to stop sharing my slides for a second and see if we can fix that. How about now? Is anyone seeing the slide should say Bookshare offers? Okay, great. All right, thank you, everybody. So I will go back just to the main, what is Bookshare, just so you can see that if that's helpful. I was talking about the wide array of titles. So there's the slide that shows how many titles and the types of books that are in the collection, and that it's free. And Bookshare books can be read on many different devices, the devices you already use, your computers, tablets, phones, specialized assistive technology devices, and we will get more into that as the presentation goes on. As I mentioned, here's just some example of some of the reading tools. We have our own web-based reader that you just read in your browser. If you're familiar with Read and Write or Snap and Read extensions for Chrome, some school districts have licenses for those. They work very well with our books. CaptiVoice, Dolphin, Voice Dream readers for tablets or other great choices. So there are a wide variety of apps, and you don't even need an app if you have a computer and can just want to read the book in a browser. So we offer two main account types, what we refer to as our organizational account type, and that's what teachers within a school or case managers in a group home, they would set up an organizational account. They set up the account, they add their students or clients who qualify and assign books to them. Students then log in with their username and password and find the books that have been assigned to them and read them. And one thing to note is if students are just on the organization account, they can only read books that have been assigned to them by their teachers. So we also offer the individual membership. A student who is already on a school account can add the individual membership. It's also free. If the student is under 18, the parent has to sign off on it. That allows them to read any book in the Bookshare collection. So it's a great way of encouraging students to read for fun. They don't just have to read what their teachers are assigning them for class. And for many of these struggling readers, being able to read something that interests them will really help keep their attention and hopefully really improve their reading skills. Now, adults who are not students would sign up for an individual account as well. And that's if they're not a student, it's $50 a year. And there are some students who you might have in your class who are using Bookshare independently, that at some point the parents had signed them up for their own account. Those two accounts can be linked to your organizational account. So you can still assign books to those students and they can still read whatever they like. If a student is already on your account, I mentioned that the parent has to sign off on it. All they do is just check a box that they give their permission. They do not need to provide any other form of proof of disability at all. So who qualifies? Bookshare operates under copyright law, not special education law, so that sometimes is a bit confusing. The copyright law states that an eligible person is someone who is blind, has a visual impairment or perceptual or reading disability, or a physical disability where they are unable to hold the book and turn the pages. And someone must have one of these conditions that renders them unable to read printed works to substantially the same degree as a person without the impairment. And this is verbatim from the law. The law does not mention specific diagnoses or does not set a criteria for what's considered a visual impairment. The law states that a competent authority who has professional experience is able to make that determination. So a competent authority is a special education teacher, an assistive technology specialist, occupational therapist, a school psychologist, an ophthalmologist, anyone that has in some way evaluated the student and has determined that they meet this criteria. So if it's been determined that they have reading challenges, they're not reading at grade level, and it's not due to the fact that English is not their first language, the professional who has worked with the student, evaluated the student, is able to make that determination that they can be added to a Bookshare account. Many of our students have IEPs and 504 plans, but that is not required for Bookshare. But again, many of them do. But particularly in the area of reading and learning disabilities, if there's not a formal diagnosis of dyslexia, say, given, there usually is, though, somewhere along the way, it's been determined that they are not reading at grade level, and a qualified, competent authority, the teacher, the AT assistant specialist who evaluates them would make a determination that a reading accommodation is needed to help them get up to speed. So Bookshare is considered a reading accommodation, particularly text-to-speech. Or maybe it's just determined that the student needs much larger font than what is typically in the books. So that competent authority makes that determination, and we leave it up to you to add qualified students. Students who are already members of Learning Ally, another ebook library, or if they're a member of the National Library Service, that also serves as qualification. And that sometimes comes into play more for individuals who are not students. So it's really easy to get started. Teachers create the account or get added to an account that might exist at your school already. They log in, they add their students who qualify. And in our system, teachers are called sponsors and students are called members. So they add their qualified students, AKA members, and assign books to them. And they can assign one book at a time, or they can create reading lists of up to as many books as you want. Sometimes at the beginning of the year, you might know the titles of all the books the students will be reading. You can just create the reading list for the year, and I will show you how to create a reading list. But as I mentioned, the students who are on the school account can only read the books that are assigned by the sponsor. When the students are added to the account, they get their own username and password, and that can be a nickname, it can be a school ID number, it can be anything you want. They then independently, if they're at home or during reading time at school, they log in on the device that they're using. They go to their homepage in their account, they see the books that have been assigned to them, and then they read. And again, I will show you what it looks like from the teacher view and from the student view. Stop my PowerPoint. Okay, you should all be seeing a page that says, My Bookshare, welcome Tanya teacher. I hope that's what everyone is seeing right now. So I'm logged in as a teacher or a sponsor, as I mentioned, they're called. And this is the My Bookshare page is sort of the dashboard of where you manage your account. It's where you add your students. It's where you can add other teachers that you work with who might also have a need to assign books to students, and the account can have as many teachers on it as you would like. This is where you create your reading lists, and you can check on the progress of the student. Have they actually read the book that you've assigned to them? You can see how many books have been downloaded for the whole account or just for students, per each student. So again, this is kind of the dashboard. And these buttons here are just sort of the main things you do. You add students and you assign books. So say you've just started your account and you want to add a new student, you can either click this green button here or the members link in the left-hand side of the page. And this is your member roster. So you can see here I have some students. We're going to add one just so you can see what that's like. Student. What is required is first name, last name, birth date, and current grade. That's the only information that we require. And then, as I mentioned, the students are given their username and password. And that can be, again, can be anything. It does have to be unique. So say you have a John Smith and there's already a John Smith in our system. You will not be able, you will have to think of something else. And I suddenly have lost my cursor. There we go. That was weird. There are some schools, some states have one account, and so you would have to put in your district, or if you are a district account and you are going to be adding students from any schools, you can enter that as well. Then this is the section where you are attesting that you are only adding qualified members. So it's qualified information. This form serves as proof of disability. We don't require you to mail in any information about the students or provide any further documentation. So you would check if it falls into the visual, learning, or physical category. We do ask if the student has an IEP or 504, but again, that is not necessary for qualification. If a student has an IEP, they do have access to a larger set of textbooks, the textbooks that are the National Instructional Materials Access Center. They are able to get those. If a student does not have an IEP and needs one of those textbooks, we are able to get the file, but sometimes it does take a little bit of time. Okay, so now I save my student. Oops. See, it's telling me that username is already. Okay, so now my student is added to my roster. And the system will ask right away if you want to assign a book or add to a reading list. So we're going to say, yes, we want to get that student reading right away. So we're going to assign a book, and just the simple search box comes up here. You can search by title, author, ISBN. Let's say, Tale of Two Cities. Okay. And you'll see there are sometimes multiple listings of the same title. Whenever there's a revised version of the book, we get that added to the collection, and it doesn't replace the older ones. Sometimes maybe you're using a book that was a certain edition, and then you want your student who's using Bookshare to have the same version so you can refer to page numbers. If you don't care about that, you can just pick any one. I'm just going to assign this one book. I'm going to say assign and close. So now I have assigned that book to that student. If I want to find another book, I can go to our browse page, which we'll go into this later. This is some of our special collections that we offer. And you can pick other books. When you're outside of your member roster, as you hit that assign button, it's going to ask you which members do you want to assign them to. You can select all of them. You can just select, 1, 2, deselect, and then those books are assigned. You have nothing else you need to do, and the students will log in and read. So now I will show you what that looks like on the student's end. Stop sharing and then share another. Okay, now you should be seeing the page that shows my Bookshare, welcome Bookshare Ben. So when the student has logged in, and I've just for ease of time, I've already logged in as a student, this is what they see. So they have a similar My Bookshare page to what the teacher has, but obviously much less features. They can see their history of books that they've already read, the reading list they've been assigned to, and so forth. So my cursor has disappeared. There we go. Sorry about that. I'm trying to get my cursor back so I can. So student is logged in. They scroll down here and they have two options: books that have been assigned to them. That's where you've just clicked that assign button next to the book title, or books from reading lists that they've been added to. So I'm going to click on here. And there goes my cursor again. Okay, so here's my list of assigned books. The student then, they would, you would tell them, I want you to read, a certain book. And if they're just going to read it in the browser, which is the easiest way to read, they would just click on this Read Now button. If they're not having to download any software or any files, the book will just open in their browser. And this is our Bookshare web reader, and it works with Google Chrome and Safari on a Mac. Currently with Firefox, the text-to-speech doesn't work. So we recommend using Google Chrome or Safari. So here's the book. These little icons at the top are how you navigate and change the settings. This is what looks like a little book. That's the table of contents. Of course, I picked a book that doesn't have a table of contents, but it would have the chapters listed here. The little gear icon is where you would change. You have two font options, the default or the Open Dyslexic, which is a font that for some people with dyslexia, it helps them track better. You can change the fonts to anywhere between 12 and 70 points. You can have a black background with white text, or white background with black text, or kind of a beigey color scheme. Again, that's very dependent on the person. Everyone has different things work for different students, and sometimes just even changing that makes a big difference. You can make the speech rate slower or faster, and you can choose your voice. Now, Bookshare books do use the synthesized text-to-speech voices, and they will use whatever voices you have on your computer. So like I'm using a PC, so Microsoft, my version of Windows has Microsoft David and Zira. There's some other, Google offers another voice you could add for free. And then there are some you can actually purchase that are a little higher quality voices, if that's something you want. Some people say, they don't care for the computerized voice. That's what enables us to have so many books in our collection, because it happens automatically. When we get a new book, there's nothing we need to do to convert it to have the audio. So that's just one of the things. And sometimes people ask us what's different between us and Learning Ally. They have the human narrated books, but they have about a quarter fewer, much less titles, because it takes much longer to do a human narrated. So you hit save. So you'd see now my font is much bigger. Our books do have images. You hit the little speaker button to have it start playing.
To my father, the late Professor Glenn Davies. To my mother, Greth Davies. And to my brothers, Roy and Kenneth. Dial YN4.
So that's just an example of how that works. And I'm going to go and show a different book that has the table of contents. Sometimes it takes a little bit. So there, you see when I click on the table of contents, I can go right to the certain chapter. It will start
15
from the beginning of the page. Unfortunately, with our web reader, you can't like position.
I shouldn't be here.
Part of the page.
That thought rang in Noemie's head like an endless refrain. It was dark.
And again, that's just our basic web reader. There are the read and write extension and the snap and read can be used as an overlay. You see there will be a toolbar once you've installed it in your Chrome browser. there's a toolbar at the top, and that offers more features. There's bookmarking features, there's dictionary, and it has also better voices. So that is an option if you just want to read using our Bookshare web reader to enhance other features. Now, say the student is going to be reading on a mobile app or on their phone, on a tablet. When they log in through the tablet, they will have to search for the title of the book. They would come to their Bookshare, my Bookshare page, see what titles have been assigned to them, and then they would go and search for that. So that's just one thing when they're not using our web reader, there is that one extra step. It doesn't automatically show up. We're hoping that in the not so distant future, the partners that we work with that make these apps will be able to incorporate where the student will see their assigned books or their reading lists. So that's how the student logs in and reads, and very quickly in the Bookshare web reader, it's very easy. They do have to, the settings will remain. If they need to change it every time they have a new book, if they want to make it faster or slower, they just go and hit that gear icon. So I wanted to show you our browse page, which is a bunch of collections that the Bookshare team puts together. See, we have the New York Times children's bestsellers, nonfiction, fiction, new books that we select every week that we think will be of interest to our readers. There's collections for kids, teens, teachers, and under the teachers section, we have books that are categorized Lexile levels, leveled readers. We were getting a lot of requests for books in the level accelerated reader, Fontes and Pinnell. If those are books that you are using in your classroom, you can find them all here. We have it arranged with a score they're given, and then there's the books right there. And again, also all the Lexile levels. So that's helpful for teachers. Adult collections, the different award winners. And for collections like the New York Times bestsellers, every time the New York Times updates them, it updates in our system as well. So the books are available the same day that they are available to get from Amazon or in a bookstore. So, sometimes you're not sure what books you want your students to read. You just want to get them reading. You might just go to one of these collections and say you like all these books. Oh, I just realized I am logged in as a student, so you won't see how to do the reading list. Hold on one second. Okay, now I'm back in as a teacher. So here I am in the New York Times bestsellers children's section. And I'm looking at some of these books and I want to assign a few of them. You would click next, if you don't want to just assign the one book, you could say add to a reading list. And it will bring up the reading list that you have already created. So say, I'm just going to add it to my demo list. That book is now added. So I go back to my Bookshare and click on this reading list link here on the left-hand side. And I just added a book to a list I call my demo list. And then there's the book. Say you want to create a new list. You have a new student or you just started your account. You click on this plus sign. You name it whatever you want. Save. It's then going to ask you to add the members. What students you want to assign these books to? So now you have your list with their members. Now you're going to add books to it. You select the titles and add books. And again, you can search the title. You add that, save and close, or you can say save and add more. So say I know there's books from that New York Times list that I want to add to this reading list. I would go here, add to reading list. And now this list that I just created shows up and I can add it to it. You also can subscribe to these reading lists that we create. This little kind of the wavy line icon here, you click on that and you say subscribe. You then add the members to it. And so now you have, add my members. Now you have this reading list that is in your collection of reading lists that your students can then, they have all those books. So they, here it is, 298 books. Maybe, sometimes you might just want to add a few books from a particular reading list, and then you would just select the add to reading list there. But when you subscribe to the list, it will automatically be updated be refreshed when it's updated in the system. Say, you've created a reading list and then you don't want it anymore. There's a little trash can icon and you delete it from your list of reading lists. So that's the other way that you can assign books to students through the reading list, and that's what we recommend when you're going to be assigning a lot of books at once. There might be cases where there's a book you need that, but you can't find it in our collection. We do offer a request a book option. Go to our help center, and there's a link here that says request a book. There's a form to fill out. You put in the title, ISBN is particular helpful, as much information as you have. And then that gets submitted and our team then goes and tries to get the book. If we can get the digital file of the book, it can be in the collection within a week or so. If it's a book we cannot get digitally from the publisher, we actually purchase the book, chop the spine off, we scan each page, proofread each page, because sometimes scanning messes things up. So that can be a much longer process, but we do make our best attempt to get books, especially for students, into our collection if we don't already have. But like I mentioned, we have over 860,000 titles, always adding more. So good chance the books you need will be in our collection. So the Help Center is also, if you have, you're forgetting one of the steps that you need to manage your account, you can come here and search, oh, I forgot how to add a member. And then it will bring up the different articles that, address adding a member. So here's one, how do I add members? We have created a bunch of these little short video tutorials. Some people learn better watching a video. Some people would just rather look at the steps, whatever works best for you. But we are really trying to provide information in a lot of different ways because everyone learns differently. So you can search through there. There's also some kind of hot topics that our customer support team gets asked a lot. We all forget our passwords for login. Tells you how to reset that. On the Help Center, there's this button for the reading tools, and this takes us to the reading tool wizard. We often get asked, I don't know what device I should read, or how do you read the books? And that again depends on what devices you have at school available for students or that students might have at home. So say in your district, you use iPads. Click on tablet or smartphone, the iPhone or iPad devices. And here we recommend some of the apps that we think are, offer a good reading experience. Dolphin Easy Reader, for example, is free. Some of the other apps do have a price. And then within this, if you click on the title, it takes you to a page that tells you how to install it, how to log in, and how to use it. So again, you go by what device you have at your disposal, on a computer or laptop. Say you're using a Chromebook. You recommend our Bookshare web reader or CaptiVoice, which is another app. And there's not a Bookshare app per se. We partner with other companies that produce the Reading Tools app. We are providing the content, we are the library, and then we work with these other partners that create the tools that you can where you can read the book. And again, I showed you our web reader. It's very simple. It just has those options of a few voices and a few settings. Some of the mobile apps, you can, there's 25 different colors you could use for highlighting. You can have each word highlighted a different color. You can set it so you only see a few words on the screen at a time, if that's going to help the student follow along. They have voices, lots of different voices in different languages. And that's another thing. We offer books in lots of different languages. So the reading tools do offer some more flexibility. In addition to just searching for a book in this field at the top or the browse page, we have an advanced search if you're looking for something very specific. Lots of different fields. You can enter terms. Maybe you just want to look for 4th grade books about animals. Bring up all the books in our system that are categorized as for 4th graders that are about animals, and also different languages. So here you can see we have a lot of different languages. So again, here's books for 4th graders about animals. So, lots of flexibility for depending on the needs of your student. We also, under the Help Center, is the Learning Center. And this is sort of the portal for all of our different training resources. If you're brand new to Bookshare and you want to set up an account and get started, I recommend this link here. It's called Educators Get Started. It walks you through each step, from logging into our website and each step of the way of what you select, how you set up your account. So that's a great resource. Again, how to read Bookshare books. This just puts in one place all of our different guides and videos about the different reading tools that are available. We have one page, and we're in the process of updating this because it's very busy, but it's all of our different guides and videos that we offer. And so you can see it's a PDF, if it has that icon, the little movie projector, that's a video. And it's loosely organized by what stage you are. When you're signing up for your account and getting started, here's all the guides and the videos that apply to the various steps. So those are just tools. We know it's a lot of information, and yes, you will be getting a copy of the PowerPoint, and as well, just to remember, and in the PowerPoint, there's links to some of these resources that I just showed you, the Reading Tools Wizard, the Get Starting Guide, so you have things to refer back to. If you're really stuck, we have a great customer support team that answer email and calls, 9 to 5, Monday through Friday, Pacific time. Their contact information can be found at the bottom of the Help Center. You can email or call. We also have a community discussion board area where if you want to talk to other teachers, how are you using it? If you have any suggestions of what could make Bookshare better, we really do listen. A lot of our work when we go out and meet with districts, we ask, what would you like to see? And we really try to incorporate that as we make updates to Bookshare. So I think I'm going to stop there. If there's any questions, And Heather, perhaps if you want to read some that are maybe common questions that people have asked that will benefit everybody.
Sure thing. Let me just take a look. One thing that we might benefit from going over again is how a sponsor can initiate the linking process for students who start with just an organizational membership and want to expand it into a linked individual membership.
Okay, sure, I can demonstrate that. So they would go to their Bookshare, my Bookshare page and the members link, and you would have to add that student to your account because you have to have something to link it to. So say, you know that the student has their account already. Just for demonstrating here, we'll say it's my test student. So they tell me they have their account, I add them, check next to their name, and then under this More Actions drop-down, I would say Add Individual Membership. And this is also what you would do for a student that has already been on your account for a while, that you want to give the new membership. So when you go to this Add Individual Membership page, there's two options. You can add one, or option 2 is adding an existing individual membership to the organization account. So once they have the added or the linked, both accounts, they will log in with an email address. We require that for the individual membership, it is an email address. So, if they've already been on your account, they've been using whatever username you've given them, now they will need to use an email address. And then moving forward, that will be their login from now on. You check you've received permission to link these accounts. Often it's because of a conversation you've had with a parent. And then submit request. And then that goes to our Bookshare team, our Bookshare's membership team, and they approve it on their end, and then it's usually a pretty quick process. So then they've added that individual membership. If you have a student that has just been on your account, and under the membership column, you can see what type of membership they have. Organization means that they just are on your school account, and then the org plus individual means that they have this linked account to their individual account. So this student, I want her to have an individual membership. Again, I just go back to that More Actions and add individual membership, and then I would use option 1. So I would put in the parent email address here, and I have the option of sending the parent an email or downloading a form. And you can also send a copy as well. What we hear happening sometimes from teachers is that they do that and then the parent never finishes. Sometimes the emails do go to a spam or trash junk folder. So if you're going to be sending it, it'd be great to communicate with the parent first to be on the lookout for that, or to look in their spam filter. If the parent doesn't have an email address, you can download and print out a form that has all the information. So when you send that parent that email, there's information in the email that has, dear parent, your child, it has the student's name, has been using Bookshare, here's the information for the individual membership. There's a link in that email. All the parent has to do is click on that email and click on that link in the email. They come to a form. It already has the student's information in. All they do is, they check a box and say, yes, I'm giving my child permission. And then they enter the email address. It could be, if the student has their own email, personal email, they can use that. It can be a student's school email. It can be the parent's email. The parent sets a password. And then the parent has the option of selecting a box that says that they give the teacher permission to manage the account. And this is really helpful because, a lot of times kids might forget their password. If they've forgotten it, you're not able, if the parent hasn't given the teacher permission to manage the account, there's nothing the teacher can do to reset the password. But if the parent does check that box, and I believe it's checked as a default, then the teacher, as a teacher, you can go in and reset their password. And I can actually show you how to do that because that's something that happens quite often. The teacher might set up all the students and assign a password. and it can be the same password for all the students, but you still forget it. So that will also help you be able to update the account when the student goes to the next year, next grade. The system doesn't automatically increment the grade, so you have to do that. But again, having that individual membership linked to the account is the best of both worlds. The teacher can assign the books. Students can read whatever they like. So say you need to edit, you have your members and you thought, oh, I've forgotten what password, what's their password? They can't log in. You just click on that little pencil icon and I can reset the password. Unfortunately, you can't see it. It's private once it's set, but you can reset it. And also if you need, it's the next year, you need to change the grade, you do that there. I also mentioned in the beginning, you can have many different teachers on the same account. You do the same, it's very similar to adding members. You click on the sponsors link, and here you'll see the other teachers who are on the account. If you want to add another teacher, just select add sponsor, enter their name, their title, their email, their phone. They then receive an email from Bookshare saying you've been added to an account. They click on a link, takes them to the site. They set up their password, and then they're ready to go, and they're ready to add their own members and assign books to their students. So that's particularly helpful for students that maybe are in special ed classes for some of their subjects, but also in the gen ed classroom. That gen ed teacher might not know about Bookshare or that the student has needs these accommodations. So that enables them to then assign the books that they're using for that subject. So it doesn't all rest on one person to assign books. Any other questions?
Since we're here on the sponsor account, it might be helpful to take a look at the student dashboard so that sponsors can see whether or not a student has downloaded a particular book.
Got a great point. So, say you want to see if the student has, read their book, you've assigned them, but are they reading it? You click on their last name, and well, here you kind of get the snapshot of their username, their grade, and so forth. So here you can see my student hasn't downloaded, it's date downloaded, it says NA, he hasn't downloaded anything yet. So then you can say, oh, I'm sorry, I'm looking at assigned books, downloaded books. It will have the date that they've downloaded, and see that was the book that my student, Bookshare Ben, looked at today, and how they read it. So they read it in web reader, they downloaded it as an EPUB. It does not tell you how many pages they've read or how long it took them to read it. We are working on upgrading our web reader where you do get some more statistics, but you can see if they've actually downloaded it or not. Also, you can see what reading list they're assigned to. So that's kind of how you see it says student dashboard for that for that student. If you click on organization information, you can look at organization downloads. And this will be a list of all the books downloaded by, you can either see all the members, see it says all users. And users are the sponsors and recipients are the students. So say you just want a general snapshot, you want to see, by the date downloaded, and you can do a custom date or just the total. So here I go, losing my mouse again. And there it will show you for all the different students on the account when they've downloaded their books. And you can export this as a CSV if you want to just have a more formal report. It just puts it into an Excel spreadsheet. I see there's a question. Someone asked, are there options on the dashboard to read summaries or ratings of books? click on the title, and there's a synopsis. It suggests other books, by the author that are in the same category, and just some details, the date we added it to our collection, the language, which category, grade levels, and so forth. One thing we get asked a lot is if teachers can preview a book before assigning it to the student. And unfortunately, because it is the copyright law, the teacher is not able to open the book and read it the way a student would. If there's really something you want to look at in the book, you can log in as one of your students and just go to bookshare.org, log in as a student, and then you could open it and read now. So that is one way if you really want to review it before you assign it. Someone's asked, does Bookshare include newspaper or magazines? Yes, we have a very kind of all the major newspapers from major cities across the country. Browse newspapers. On that button that's again on that browse page. You can see national magazines, and then for each state. If there's any other questions, I'm happy to answer.
We did just get a question in the chat about whether a student can continue to use the service after they graduate and enter university.
Yes, Bookshare, again, is students of all ages. So they are able to continue. They can either, if they don't have an individual membership, we often recommend for when they go to college that they have, they do have their own individual membership, because that way they can, probably they have a class, they get a syllabus, they can then find the books they need. If after they're out of the K-12 system, they are not going on to college, they can convert their membership to an individual membership, and then they would have to pay $50 a year if they're no longer a student. But yeah, and again, they would, if they don't have the individual membership, they would either need to get onto an account at the college level, and many college, the disability student service offices have accounts, or again, the individual membership.
It looks like we have a follow-up question on the newspaper. Whether the teachers will be able to access the articles and assign a specific one.
I don't believe those can be assigned. That's a really great question, though. Let me see. No, it can just be downloaded, but it can't be assigned. Good question. Any others?
A question did just come up. Will the passwords stay the same with individual and organizational? If you're referring to once the accounts are leaked on the organizational account, then yes, the password will be the same. When you reset it, there won't be two accounts at that point. The student will just use their email as their username and whatever password that you set, or if they personally reset it, then whatever password they set.
Yeah, that's correct. And again, if it's forgotten, if the parent has given the teacher permission to manage the account, the teacher can set it. And we highly recommend that, and I believe it is the default option, and really don't see any downside from a parent not wanting the teacher to manage it, but we have to give people that choice.
And it looks like we just got another question. Are there any situations where a non-disability student can be added to an account? Unfortunately, no. Bookshare can only provide our services to people with print disabilities due to the copyright law that allows us to provide these materials at all, as Laura mentioned at the beginning of the presentation.
Yeah, that is correct. And we've been getting, ever since the COVID situation, we have been getting a lot of questions about that because teachers realize it'd be great for all of our students to have this content available to them. And I do want to point out, there was a question about if we have any special information or resources for during this COVID time. So sharing my screen, I'm back at the Bookshare homepage, and under that Sign Up Today green banner, there's Learning at Home during COVID-19. And we have tips for educators and for parents. And what's happened in this situation is, a lot of students have been using it at home and using it at school, and the parents, they might know that they're using it, but they've never used it at home. And now suddenly the parents are, have to help the student. And so we put together, again, some tips for parents, resources for them so their child can continue using it. But we have these two sections. Learning at Home for educators. It just has some of the basic steps of assigning books and the reading tools and giving the individual access to them. Some of our partner resources are there, and then for parents, there's some information as well. And we recognize that things have changed quite drastically the last few months. When you set up a new account, you have to download and sign an organizational agreement form. Obviously now a lot of people don't have printers at home, so they can't actually download and sign the form. So we have, you are able to send us an email and include all the information that's in the form and attach that downloaded form to it. And then that serves as authorization for creating the account. So when you do create an account, you do need to, on your My Bookshare page, there'll be a link that says download the organizational agreement form. That's the only thing that you need to send in to us when you create the account. And just basically you're signing it saying you will use the account as intended, you will not violate copyright law, you'll only add qualified students. And you can, if you are able to actually download, if you have a printer at home and hand sign it, you can take a picture of that and email it to us as well, or scan an email. So we've had to have some flexibility during this time when people are not in their normal educational situations. All right, well, if there's no further questions, we are almost exactly at 1 o'clock. I thank everybody for your time. You will receive an email with a link to the presentation and a couple other links that are helpful. My email and phone number are in the presentation. Feel free to reach out if there's any other questions that come up once you start looking into using Bookshare more, or just if a question wasn't answered, you can feel free to reach out. And thank you, everybody, and enjoy the rest of your day.